GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Please be informed of significant road disruptions due to various incidents today. On the M62 westbound, near junction 27, a vehicle fire has closed 2 out of 4 lanes, delaying traffic by 40 minutes. Resurfacing work on the M4 westbound at junction 42, Earlswood, has led to a full road closure with diversions in place. And on the trains, there is major disruption on the East Midlands Railway between Bedford and London St Pancras International. Additionally, Grand Central services are experiencing delays between Peterborough, Cambridge and London King's Cross. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Cleethorpes here has a rich military history. Today, 200,000 people are going to be turning up, and all around there are the celebrations of those veterans and those current serving military personnel. Now, we're here with the guys from HMS Antrim. Let's go and have a chat to a few of them. Nigel Smith, will come to you first. Hi. Now, you've got this beautiful bench which has been you've done and commissioned. Tell us about HMS Antrim and that story, because I don't think it's something actually a lot of people probably know.
So HMS Antrim was in the Falklands War in 1982. We were a bunch of young lads, 17 years old, going to war. No idea what was happening, when it was happening. We're just told we're going down south and we're going to war with the Argentinians. To be honest, half of them thought we was going up north to Scotland. So you imagine it's been 17 years old, we're on a warship, join the Navy, see the world, and suddenly we're all going to war at 17-year-old. And we're all, well, half a dozen of us here at the moment.
For you, what does Armed Forces Day mean for you? You've got your bench here, you know, you're celebrating here today. Is it about a celebration of the forces? What does it mean for you today?
For me, it's literally celebrating the brotherhood of the Antrim, plus recognising what the Armed Forces do. It's under-recognised, and the country doesn't really have an Armed Forces anymore. And this, they need to start thinking, we need the Armed Forces. Back in '82, we had best part of 100 warships. You don't have that anymore. So we had the camaraderie, we knew what we were doing. It's all computerised anymore now and stuff like that, but nobody knows what we did in '82, and that was a big thing for the Antrim. We were the first ship since World War II to sink a submarine for a start. We were the first ship down there, the last ship back, and we went back down there 2 months after we had a repair damage done. You know, and it is the camaraderie of the lads and the teamwork.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's 9:30 on Friday, the 8th of August, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie Peters and Olivia Rutley.
Homelessness Minister quits. Rashuna Ali branded a hypocrite for evicting her tenants and then pumping up the rent. Deputy Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Daisy Cooper, spoke to GB News earlier.
The fact of the matter is she has acted within the law, but as a minister she was trying to change the law, and she hasn't acted in the spirit of the new law that she wanted to introduce. So I think she's right to resign.
And some breaking news this morning. Sir Keir Starmer has condemned Israel's war cabinet after they approved plans to take control of Gaza City. Here's the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
We want to liberate ourselves and liberate the people of Gaza from the awful terror of Hamas.
And the Equality and Human Rights Commission tells schools, hospitals, leisure centres and cinemas to ban trans women from using single-sex spaces like toilets and changing rooms.
And President Donald Trump's deadline for Russia to end its war in Ukraine expires today as uncertainty looms over a meeting between Trump and Putin.
Weight loss revolution? Trials of a daily obesity tablet show it can help patients lose around 12% of their body weight over 72 weeks. It could be coming to the NHS soon.
And row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Just don't do it if you're in Great Yarmouth, as independent MP Rupert Lowe mistakes some charity rowers for small boat migrants. And worst of all, he posted about it on social media. That's a bit of a shocker, isn't it?
I'm very excited to see this. I missed this.
You haven't seen it?
No.
Sometimes I think people get a bit carried away on social media. They see things and they see what they want to see rather than what's
They
actually
really do.
happening.
That didn't look to me like a small boat migrant group.
We haven't had an uncontrolled landing, right, on the shores of Britain for many years now. As you know, our viewers will see us all the time. They are ferried along by Border Force. So to see a bunch of rowers and think...
Standing there proudly, posing for the camera.
Here they come again. And to think they might have gone all the way around to Great Yarmouth as well was quite a funny route. This will trickle. Maybe
you'd double check before you post, wouldn't you?
Rowing over from Rotterdam or something. But, well, who can say? Perhaps it was a bit of a tongue-in-cheek post from Rupert Lowe. He has apologised. I think he's made a donation to those charity rowers.
Always Rupert Lowe's way. Yeah.
That's the way. If you want to boost your donation, get on a rowing boat, go near the English Channel, and who knows, maybe some right-wing politician will assume you're an illegal migrant and you'll get loads of cash as a consequence. So yes, we'd love to hear what you think about that and all the other stories we're talking about today. Please do send your views, post your comments. gbnews.com/your say.
Yes, but first, here is your 60-second news update with Katie Bowen.
Good morning. The headlines at 9:33. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has warned that the Israeli government's plan to take over Gaza City will only bring more bloodshed, labelling the plan wrong and urging the Israeli government to reconsider. The Energy Minister has said this morning that Rushanara Ali has not broken the law or any rules after she resigned over accusations of hiking rent on her own tenants. Rushanara Ali stepped down following claims she raised rent by hundreds of pounds just weeks after ending her previous tenant's contract. The government plans to introduce restriction zones for serious sexual and violent criminals, forcing them to stay in specific areas. The measures aim to allow survivors to go about their daily lives without fear of seeing their offender. President Trump has said that he is open to meeting Russian leader Vladimir Putin without Volodymyr Zelensky. That's as the US president's ceasefire deadline for Russia is set to expire today. And new guidance is set to be published later this month that will advise that trans women are banned from single-sex spaces. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello and welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Charlie Peters and Olivia Utley.
Now, we're talking about this homelessness minister resignation this morning, of course, dominating a lot of the front pages. That's Rushanara Ali. She's left after claims that she evicted her tenants by hiking up rent by hundreds of pounds.
Conservative MP Kevin Hollinray called it a staggering hypocrisy after she vowed to challenge unreasonable rent increases. In her resignation letter, Ali insisted she followed all legal requirements, but admitted staying on would be a distraction from the government's work. Now, what do you think about this, Charlie? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, a landlord is a business person. Of course they're going to raise their rents to the market value, but is it too hypocritical to be possible?
I think it's the classic case in politics, isn't it, Olivia, of the so-called bad look, right? Even if it's technically acceptable in the law, it's unacceptable politically. It's a bit like cricket, isn't it? It's not in the spirit of the game.
Not in the spirit of the game. Not in the spirit of the game because the Labour Party are introducing this renters reform bill. And I'm fascinated to see how all of that pans out. I mean, I think it's going to scare a lot of landlords out of the market. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that'll mean that more people get on the property ladder. I suspect there might be unintended consequences.
Yeah, it's on the front page of so many papers today. And the Telegraph leading with this line, hypocrisy, as you point out, because she's got this role, evicting tenants.
Yeah, I looked into the tenants. I mean, one of them owns a restaurant. I don't think she's about to be made homeless.
Right.
But it is a little bit awkward as the homelessness minister. It's exactly the sort of thing that Angela Rayner rails against.
No, it is a mess for Labour. And they've lost now quite a few ministers in serious portfolio roles, this government, in a year. For controversies relating to those roles in many cases. So, look, I think a year or so ago when we had similar concerns about Conservative ministers resigning, there was a bit of furore. And I think Labour are now starting to realise that they're the people facing those criticisms now for that chaos is going to be very difficult. And just briefly, I mean, we're looking at all these front pages. There's a lovely photo at the front of the Telegraph, and just show our audience there, of a mother and daughter graduating from army training together. Shireen de Stadler and junior soldier Chloe de Stadler. That's much cheerier.
You would be so proud, wouldn't you, if that was your daughter? How amazing.
What a beautiful photo. So well done to the Telegraph for getting that one up there. Really lovely stuff. And I'm glad that there is, you know, some family pride to put on the front of our front pages today, beyond just Labour hypocrisy as leading all of the issues. And below that, actually, living standards will stagnate under Reeves, has warned the Bank of England. So they're breaking up the misery on that front page with that lovely photo of mother and daughter preparing for military careers. I'd love to know the backstory to that.
I know. I mean, that mother looks younger than me, and she has an adult daughter, which is slightly terrifying.
You can see it's a brown beret, and they've referred to her as a guardsman, so she's joined the infantry, a fighting soldier. Quite an extraordinary moment. Right, well, let's speak now, not about that lovely mother-daughter relationship, but let's speak to the former Labour aide, Stella Chankakidu, who's joining us to talk about this homelessness minister resigning. Stella, you've heard Olivia and I there saying that it's an issue of hypocrisy. Is that your view as well?
Yes, and at first, I have to say, I was extremely shocked, and I was very glad to see her swiftly resign. That was the right decision to do. However, if you dig into the story, I have to give her some credit, because if you look at the actual details, this has been reported as... oh, really sorry about that. This has been reported as Rushanara evicting them and not giving them the option to stay. But actually what happened is that she told them that she's going to sell the house. She allowed them to stay past their fixed-term contract if they so wish to do so, and they chose to leave at the end of their contract. Now she tried to, I'm really sorry about that. My father is trying to call me repeatedly.
Stella, you've got to put a do not disturb on your phone before you come on GB News. It'll make a difference.
I'm really sorry. I will be doing that next time.
It's fine. Don't worry. Keep going. You're all right.
She tried to evict them, and then when she didn't evict them, sorry. She tried to sell the house. She put it up to sell it back in November, and when it didn't sell, she decreased the price, and then in February she rented it out again, which was for the increased price for £4,000, which is of course absolutely unacceptable. As a homelessness minister for the Labour Party, you are supposed to not be a landlord. You are supposed to not be seeking to profit from rent and from your renters. And it is exactly the kind of behaviour that is going to be that's going to stop under the Renters' Right Bill, which Rushanara Ali is supposed to be championing in her role as homelessness minister.
Onto that Renters' Rights Bill, just to broaden out the conversation a little bit. Do you think that this is going to work as it is intended to? The idea, I suppose, is to make life easier for tenants. But isn't it likely that what actually happens is that landlords decide that it's too difficult for them to be in the market, they withdraw their homes from the market, and there ends up being a smaller stock of homes available to rent? Is that a potential issue?
Yes, of course it is. No, it's not a potential issue, because the idea is you need to build more houses. You need to have more houses so that there are more houses to rent. So the problem here is not that we don't have enough people who own houses and they are willing to rent them. The problem is that we don't have enough houses for people to live in them. So yes, obviously we should have a system where we have landlords who are behaving in the appropriate way. But you can't tell me that Rushanara Ali did something to the house where she suddenly deserves £700 extra a month.
And I completely agree, but isn't the issue that, you know, landlords, whether you like it or not, have to operate as business people? You know, we think of landlords as incredibly rich people. Lots of them actually aren't that rich at all. The way they rent out their houses to make money to live off. If it becomes impossible for them to rent out those houses, if they're not making enough of a profit to live on, they will simply not let out their houses anymore. And then that will mean that the price of renting a house in London particularly will just go up. And that will make housing more unaffordable for everyone.
they will not be renting their houses, and what will they be doing? They will just be keeping them the houses, as loads of rich people are doing at the moment, all over massive
They'll probably
houses in
sell
West
their
London.
houses, I suspect, to the super rich who won't need to rent them out at all.
Great, they can sell their houses. I doubt that it is the super rich that are going to be buying houses like the one that Rushana Ali was renting out. But I think it is a good thing if they do actually sell them to people who will take better care of them. Because what we had in this situation, is this what we want to continue having? A situation where landlords are not just making... You are saying that landlords are businesses, right? So tell me, what kind of profit do you expect from a business where you're not really investing that much in that property? And there are, of course, amazing landlords out there who absolutely do invest and who do everything for their tenants to be safe and comfortable and secure in their homes. But there are a lot of landlords who have not updated their homes at all, who are continuing to rise the prices just because naturally the prices of these neighborhoods is going to rise through nothing that they have done, by the way, just because the neighborhoods are being gentrified, just because London is growing more generally and there is this scarcity of housing. So how much profit really should landlords be making? Is this what the average business owner, the average small and medium-sized business owner, the kind of business owner like the person who was renting out from Miss Rushanara Ali, who is a restaurant owner, are you telling me that she is expecting to be making that much more profit year after year after year? Why should the landlords seeing their profits multiply?
OK, Stella, on to the politics of, though, again. You have to say, so Keir Starmer's response in those letters, I'm sure you've seen them, his shortest one yet for all those resignations we've seen so far in his government. You can tell he's pretty cheesed off, can't you?
Yes, of course, and he's right to be so. Shouldn't an MP, when you're given the brief of homelessness minister, and frankly, before that as well, you're a Labour Party MP. You're standing on the platform when you are saying, we are going to champion the rights of renters and we are going to end homelessness once and for all. Shouldn't you then act appropriately? Shouldn't you be extremely vigilant? And I completely understand, you know, she's saying, oh, the letting agency was doing, was deciding whether to charge the tenants for cleaning fees and all of these things. Obviously, when you're a landlord and you're a very busy person as well, you do expect that a lot of your duties, you will be offloading them to another professional. But come on, it is your actual brief. You need to be extra cautious. So even though I have not agreed with the way Keir Starmer has handled party management in the past, I do think that a lot of the times he has overreached. I do think that he should have allowed for more freedom for a lot of MPs to make sure that you're able to have a broad church in the Labour Party and to hold talent in the Labour Party. But on this one, I'm just so glad she resigned within the day.
OK, former Labour aide Stella Chantatigu, thank you very much for joining us this morning. And also to your lovely dad, who was trying to get involved with the chat as well. Let him know he can join gbnews.com/your say if he wants to stay tuned. Because we've heard from Gareth there, Olivia, who says even if she was a backbench Labour MP supporting the changes, it would still be bad. It would still mean you were a complete hypocrite. Yeah.
And I think the hypocrisy point is really interesting, but I'd also love to hear what viewers think generally about this renters reform bill and what it is going to mean for ordinary people in the UK. Will it make housing more affordable or will it not? If you're a landlord, we'd really, really like to hear from you as well. What will it mean for your business?
Yes, landlords, own up, get in touch. We'd love to speak to you too. Right, well, still ahead, almost 400 small boat migrants have crossed the channel since the government's new returns deal with France became operational.
Yes, up next, US President Donald Trump abandons plans for three-way talks with Putin and Zelensky, insisting he's happy to negotiate without the president of Ukraine.
And if you are in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations. See you in a moment.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Looking ahead to tomorrow, and the weather across southern Europe is looking pretty dry for most places, albeit a bit of rain is pushing across Madeira. Meanwhile, for Spain, Portugal and even France, the heat is continuing to build, so temperatures for some could be getting into the high 30s, maybe even low 40s through the weekend. Meanwhile, across parts of Italy, Greece, even into Turkey, lots of dry and hot weather here, and that's how the outlook is looking as well, staying largely sunny.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Did a royally deserved rest?
Well, there have been reports this morning from a retired civil servant and royal fan who swears blind that she's spotted the Prince and Princess of Wales and their family on a £40 million super yacht while holidaying on the Greek island of Kefalonia earlier this month. So, is this an invasion of their privacy, or is it fair enough for us, the public, to know where the royal family choose to take their holidays?
Well, let's talk to the royal commentator, Jack Stooks. Jack, you're a big fan of this family. They've had a pretty tough year, haven't they? Let's be honest, with the Princess of Wales struggles with cancer. Do you think most people think, let them have a good holiday, and who cares where they are?
Yeah, good morning. I'll say good morning to you both. It's been a difficult last actually few years for all the family, and if they're paying to go on a holiday, I don't think it's up to any of us to know where they are. If they've been loaned a yacht, or whatever it might be, if they're there with the princess's family or not, I don't think it's relevant for all of us to know. It's I've read the article, and it's a retired civil servant saying that she thinks she saw them, and then you've got other stories coming out saying, were they here, were they there? But it's a little bit of a I saw the Loch Ness monster last week. So it is a bit of a ridiculous story, but the crux of it are that I do think that they should be allowed to have private holiday time like we all do. If they're on if they aren't actually there for a specific purpose, then normally the Greek islands will be told the Prince and Princess of Wales are coming, and then there's going to be certain events and certain charities that they'll be visiting.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
And it's 9:50. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. President Donald Trump has said he will meet with Vladimir Putin even if the Russian leader refuses to meet with Ukrainian Volodymyr Zelensky.
Does Putin have to meet with Zelensky in order and before you and Putin have to meet? Or are you
No.
Are you hoping he doesn't have to agree to meet with Zelensky? Is that what you're saying?
No, he doesn't. No.
Now, the Kremlin has said that their meeting could happen within days, adding that a location has been agreed.
Putin's news came on the eve of the White House ceasefire deadline for Russia, which is set to expire today. Now, we're joined in the studio here by US commentator Nora Lee. That deadline was today for the end of the war in Ukraine. How's that going?
So clearly the deadline has had an effect. It's gotten Putin back at the table, which I think is very important to continue the negotiations. And it's expected that a meeting will likely happen in the UAE. If you looked at the Russian markets yesterday, they were up 4.5%. And having been a trader myself, I always like to look at the markets because it's incorporating expectations. So it looks like post-Witkoff's meeting on Wednesday, where he spoke to Putin for 3 hours, details were not revealed, but it was apparently a very constructive meeting, that there may be something more productive to come out of this meeting.
But if that meeting goes ahead without Volodymyr Zelensky there, will that really have an impact? Isn't the whole point of Donald Trump that he says these bold things and then he goes forward and makes them happen? Doesn't he look a little bit weak in this situation?
I would disagree with you, because what's important is to understand what are the negotiating points. In this conflict, everybody's going to have to give up something. And so Trump needs to understand Putin's bottom line. What is it that he wants? What can we negotiate on? I think one thing that people haven't talked about is the Russian money that's been sanctioned. I think it's about $350 billion. That could potentially be on the table. I mean, clearly, Trump is focused on what started this war altogether, which was Ukraine joining NATO. And, you know, now there's going to be tariffs on India on buying oil from Russia. Clearly, they get it at a discount, but Trump has announced an additional 25% tariffs on India, again, to hurt Russia. That's ultimately 50% tariffs on India. It could potentially happen on China as well. So there's a lot to discuss. And there's leverage on Trump's hand, there's leverage on Russia's hand, because they keep taking more territory.
And Nora Knotson, you mentioned the sanctions there. We're just hearing now from the Finnish foreign minister, hoping that President Trump will move forward with those sanctions. Speaking in the last half hour to the news agencies, that the increased arms deliveries to Ukraine, she also says that's piling on the pressure to Russia. Do you think that those American allies in the east of Europe, they now have that sense that Washington might push forward on those sanctions and potentially increasing arms supplies because President Trump is losing his patience with this war and trying to engage with Vladimir Putin?
I think you're right. I think Trump is losing his patience with this war, with Putin. What Trump doesn't like is senseless killing. And if you look at the Gallup poll that came out this week that they did in Ukraine, actually 69% of Ukrainians now want a negotiated deal. Ukrainians are now weary. You know, there's been a lot of bloodshed. And I think, you know, on both sides. I think Russia also wants to end this war.
I reckon you're right. Ordinary Russians, ordinary Ukrainians probably do want some sort of a deal. But is it really possible to negotiate with someone like Vladimir Putin? There have been sanctions on Russia for a really long time now. It doesn't seem to have had an impact. Vladimir Putin has an ideological crusade going on here. Is anything Donald Trump going to say really going to stop him?
I would think that Donald Trump takes a different approach. He doesn't really see it as an ideological crusade. What he sees it as, this war started because Ukraine was going to join NATO. That was a red line for Putin, and Trump acknowledges that. And he wants to try to deal with Russia. We have to coexist with them. And whether we like it or not, you know, we have to find a way to stop this war and give up something on both sides.
Brilliant. Nora Knotson, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And where will that meeting take place? Could be the UAE, could be elsewhere. We'll see. Right, well, coming up next, we will find out why it's bad to go rowing in Rupert Lowe MP's patch of Great Yarmouth. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. See you after the weather.
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed Aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. This is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. For many of us, it is going to be a fine day today. Most of us will see some decent sunshine, and in that sunshine, it's going to feel pleasantly warm. But across northern parts, it's a slightly different story. There is some wet weather here, quite persistent rain to start the day across parts of Shetland. Otherwise, across many parts of Scotland, there will be outbreaks of showery rain pushing through, and we have some blustery winds here as well. Across Northern Ireland and some parts of northern England, a bit cloudy at times, but across the rest of England and Wales, lots of sunshine, and in that sunshine, temperatures will rise. We're looking at highs of around 25 Celsius towards the southeast, so feeling pretty warm indeed. After a largely fine day, it's going to be a fine evening across much of England and Wales. Perhaps a bit more cloud pushing into some parts of the southwest, but it looks quite high cloud, so just turning the sunshine a bit milky. Otherwise, a fine picture for most. A bit more cloud still across parts of Northern Ireland and Northern England. 1 or 2 spots of rain can't be ruled out, but it's really across many parts of Scotland, especially the northern 2/3 of Scotland, where we have the greatest chance of some outbreaks of rain as we go through this evening. And still those blustery winds. Most of the showery outbreaks will actually clear away for a little period of time across northern areas, but then a front is going to push its way in from the northwest. So some potentially heavy rain pushing into parts of northwest Scotland and maybe northwest Northern Ireland. But elsewhere across the rest of the country, it's looking dry with some clear skies, and so temperatures may be a touch lower than some recent nights. And with that, there could be a few pockets of mist and fog first thing tomorrow morning. And then through tomorrow itself, that front towards the northwest does gradually edge its way a little bit further south south and east, so just about pushing into parts of northern England. But it breaks up as it goes, so not bringing a huge amount of rain here. Plenty of showery bursts across Scotland following in behind. Still quite blustery here, but a fine picture towards the southeast ahead of that front. And here temperatures look like they'll be a touch higher than today.
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed Aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. High winds on the Tay Road Bridge cause disruptions. The A92 is closed to double-decker vehicles with a speed limit of 30 miles per hour. Resurfacing on the M4 westbound at Earlswood requires complete closure with diversions. In Cheshire East, an M6 northbound incident between junctions 16 and 17 blocks one lane. Normal conditions are expected later. In Medway, a vehicle tyre change on the M2 eastbound between junctions 2 and 3 has closed one lane. And on the trains, expect major disruption on East Midlands Railway and Grand Central between Bedford and London St Pancras International and Peterborough and London King's Cross. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Let us take on some of your financial stresses and pay your mortgage or rent for the next 12 months. We want to give you a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an unbelievable £20,000. We'll also boost that by a further £5,000, so you really could have some fun in the coming year. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
And it's 10 o'clock on Friday, the 8th of August, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie Peters and me, Olivia Utley.
And the Homeless Minister has quit. Rushanara Ali has been branded a hypocrite for evicting her tenants and then pumping up the rent. Well, the Deputy Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Daisy Cooper, spoke to GB News earlier this morning.
The fact of the matter is she has acted within the law, but as a minister she was trying to change the law and she hasn't acted in the spirit of the new law that she wanted to introduce. So I think she's right to resign.
Breaking news, Sir Keir Starmer condemns Israel's war cabinet for approving plans to take control of Gaza City. Here is Israel MP Benjamin Netanyahu.
We want to liberate ourselves and liberate the people of Gaza from the awful terror of Hamas.
And the Equality and Human Rights Commission has told schools, hospitals, leisure centres and cinemas to ban trans women from using single-sex spaces such as toilets and changing rooms.
And the weight loss revolution. Trials of a daily obesity tablet show it can help patients lose around 12% of their body weight over 72 weeks. And it could become to the NHS soon.
Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Just don't do it if you're in Great Yarmouth, because the independent MP Rupert Lowe has recently mistaken some charity rows for small boat migrants. And worst of all, he posted it on social media.
And roadworks rage. The market town of Ashbourne in Derbyshire is facing a summer of traffic cones, red lights and angry local businesses.
It's a £15 million regeneration, but businesses in the area have said they worry whether they're going to survive the summer because decreased footfall that they've seen in the town centre. We'll be speaking to them and getting their reaction.
Lovely to see Jack Carson there standing outside some roadworks. There is a whole brand of man in Italy, I don't know if you know this, Olivia, who are well known for just standing like this and watching roadworks. It's such a... They just observe.
I did not know
it's an entire... I don't know the word for this sort of person.
But that's a really long Italian word.
I will be assessing it on Wikipedia shortly. But there is a whole trend in Italy about pensioners, particularly men, just standing and watching roadworks. I don't know, maybe just inspecting what's going on. And
you make it sound like, oh, Jack is one of these people. He does have a reason to be there.
It immediately came to my mind when I saw him. I thought, there's no one else there. No roadworks actually taking place while Jack Carson was filming. Probably thinking, when are they going to get to work? It's always good to see Mr. Carson looking at his best Italian self. I think so. Looks super smart. And these weight loss pills, then, Olivia. I mean, personally, I think it's a pretty good idea to get this stuff on the NHS because of the cost.
Well, exactly. I mean, the overall cost of obesity for the NHS are just phenomenal. So many diseases that people are dying of at the moment can be put down to obesity. So you get that sorted, you've got a lot of our issues sorted.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, but what do you think? Let us know your views. Post your comments visiting gbnews.com/your say. But first, and before we get stuck into all our stories this morning, let's get our latest news headlines with Katie Bowen.
Charlie, Olivia, thank you. The headlines at 3 minutes past 10. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has warned that the Israeli government's plan to take over Gaza City will only bring more bloodshed, labelling the plan wrong and urging the Israeli government to reconsider. Benjamin Netanyahu met with his security cabinet last night and received approval for a military takeover of Gaza City and a phased reoccupation plan, saying it's the only way to remove Hamas and liberate the people of Gaza. The UN has warned of catastrophic consequences. The security cabinet also adopted 5 principles for ending the entire war, including disarming Hamas, the return of all hostages, and the demilitarisation of Gaza. It comes as Prime Minister Netanyahu said Israel intends to take control of all of Gaza. Elsewhere, the Energy Minister has said this morning that Rushanara Ali has not broken the law or any rules after she resigned over accusations of hiking rent on her own tenants. Rushanara Ali stepped down following claims she raised rent by hundreds of pounds just weeks after ending her previous tenant's contract. In her resignation letter, Miss Ali insisted she followed all legal requirements, but admitted staying on would be a distraction from the government's work. Sir Keir Starmer thanked her and said her legacy would leave a lasting impact. Conservative Party Chairman Kevin Hollinrake said her position was untenable.
I think actually what Rushanara Ali did was quite extreme, actually, and I've been in the property business a long time, and to basically end a tenancy and then put the rent up by 20% for the next tenant is quite extreme, and most landlords don't do that. And particularly when you're advocating a change yourself and moralising about that change, your position is just not tenable.
President Trump has said that he is open to meeting Russian leader Vladimir Putin without Volodymyr Zelensky. That's as the US president's ceasefire deadline for Russia is set to expire today. Yesterday, a White House source said that Putin must meet with Zelensky for the meeting between President Trump and Putin to occur. However, when asked last night if that would be necessary, the US president said that it wasn't, abandoning a previous pledge for 3-way peace talks. The Kremlin has said that the meeting between the two leaders could happen within days, adding that a location has been agreed. Just days ago, President Trump declared Russia an extraordinary threat to the US, where he rolled out the first wave of sanctions against Putin's refusal to stop the war in Ukraine. Elsewhere, David Lammy is set to meet US Vice President JD Vance today amid those ongoing conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine. The Foreign Secretary is expected to host Mr Vance at Chevening, his official country retreat in Kent, as the Vice President begins a summer holiday with his family in the UK. They'll discuss UK-US relations in a bilateral meeting before being joined by their families. The US and UK have found themselves at odds on Gaza, with Sir Keir Starmer's pledge to recognise a Palestinian state if Israel doesn't agree to a ceasefire, drawing criticism from Washington. The government plans to introduce restriction zones for serious sexual and violent criminals, forcing them to stay in specific areas. Ministers will seek to introduce zones that limit where abusers can go, aiming to allow survivors to go about their daily lives without fear of seeing their offender. Offenders could be restricted to certain locations and tracked with technology and would face jail time for breaching the conditions under new proposals. Exclusion zones do currently exist to stop perpetrators from going to where their victims live, but the new measure comes as the government plans to overhaul the prison system to curb overcrowding. Violent and sexual offenders could be released from jail earlier, with more criminals to serve sentences in the community. And new guidance set to be published later this month would advise that trans women are banned from single-sex spaces. The Equality and Human Rights Commission is set to advise schools, hospitals, leisure centres and cinemas to ban trans women from using spaces such as lavatories and changing rooms. Guidance from the EHRC will apply to any organisation that provides services to the public, extending to government departments, the NHS and prisons. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More from me in half an hour.
Hello, welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News with me, Charlie Peters and Olivia Utley. And we'd love to know what you think throughout today's programme, of course. Send your views, post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/your say, where many of you have been getting in touch already, Olivia.
You have, and there is a lot of sympathy here for landlords. Got one from John here saying landlords don't spend much. That's complete rubbish, I'll say on air. Buying a property costs a fortune, deposit, stamp duty, legal fees, plus thousands more to get it livable. That's all before a penny of rent comes in. Tenants stop paying bills, that's months of lost rent, legal fees and damage to fix it while the bills still roll in. So being a landlord isn't easy money, it's expensive, risky and full of stress. And that's sort of what I was saying earlier. Is there a danger that these landlords just decide it's not really worth it for them anymore?
Yeah, with regulation piling up on the housing sector as well, it is becoming more and more difficult to be a landlord, and everyone, likes to attack them. But Christ, you do need them sometimes.
I mean, the argument is that the landlords disappear and then those houses go on the market, they become more affordable and people can buy them. I'm just not 100% sure if that's true. Will people have the deposits to be able to buy them?
No, not even close. Especially in a town like London, right? Where the number of landlords in that market, I believe, is lowering quite rapidly. People are selling up because of how difficult it is to do it. And then we're shocked there isn't as much housing stock available to keep things moving along.
Well, absolutely. We've got a comment from Steve here saying basically just that. Labour has just no idea about how these things work. It will keep making really bad choices. This change in housing is a classic. Landlords will sell up and rents will go up. Classic socialist ideology gone wrong.
Yeah, and there's also been lots of reaction to, obviously, the more political hook on this discussion about housing, with Rushanara Ali, her resigning. A lot of people saying, what she's done is totally legal, but it's not in the spirit of the politics.
Optics, all about the optics.
Well, let's move on now, because GB News can reveal that a local Labour group is under fire after promoting a counter-protest in Aldershot in favour of housing asylum seekers in hotels.
It comes as the government published the first pictures of its new returns deal with France, where almost 400 small boat migrants have crossed the Channel since this deal was signed.
Now, we're joined in the studio by our Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, great to be with you. Let's go straight to that operational deal recently signed. What effect is it having so far, and how long will it take for us to see a significant reduction?
Well, no effect so far. It looked like business as usual when I was down in Dover yesterday, to the point, in fact, where in the evening, despite horrific conditions in the Channel, really big swells because of winds blowing down the Channel, the migrant people smugglers put out a boat containing 83 migrants, absolutely crammed. And in fact, there had to be 2 lifeboats and a Border Force vessel all involved in trying to pull these migrants from that boat onto the Border Force vessel because of the conditions. So clearly, they don't give 2 hoots. What you're looking at here are the images that were released from the Home Office yesterday showing the first cohort of asylum seeker migrants who've come across the English Channel coming up the gangway there. This is at Dover Harbour at the Western Jetfoil, where the Border Force vessels first land these migrants after they make the illegal crossing. And then we got another piece of video that will show you the migrants as they make the next part of the journey after they've been medically assessed there and triaged. They head to Manston. That Manston facility here is much bigger in terms of the operation. The migrants are normally there for about 48 hours. And the facilities there are really to determine, assess who these people are. So you get biometric data, fingerprints, DNA taken to try to get a handle on who on earth these people are. Because we don't know who they are. We don't know the threat that they potentially could pose to the UK. And then I think we've got some more video that shows the cohort of migrants being sent off to immigration detention. So they're going off to immigration removals and detention facilities. Normally they would be off to a 4-star hotel near you. You can see them. We think that this is near Heathrow Airport, the removal centre at Harmondsworth there. It certainly looks like that to me. And so a bit of a rude awakening for them, thinking they're off to their 4-star hotel or their house of multiple occupation has become, increasingly common. But this cohort, we don't know the exact numbers, but it's likely to be pretty small, are destined for France. If they can get through the legal hoops, if France accept them, and of course if the human rights lawyers and activist groups don't decide to scupper it all in the courts.
Well, as you said there, Mark, there's quite a few ifs there. And I spoke to some Conservative MPs who actually said, perhaps you'll say, of course they would say that actually this policy risks the numbers of migrants going up because people smuggling gangs will use this policy as advertising. They'll say the chance of you actually getting deported is so slim because of all those ifs that you mentioned there, it'll actually attract more people over the channel. Do you think that is a risk?
Well, it's certainly possible. I can tell you exactly what people smugglers are already saying to those potential customers down in northern France. They're saying that if you get in the minute chance of you being returned to France, if you get returned to France, we guarantee we will give you a free ride back over to the UK.
It does always feel as though the government is sort of 10 steps behind these people smugglers. Whichever government is in power, these people smugglers are so agile. They are business people. They know what they're doing. They're all over TikTok. And the government's sort of reacting, but just too late.
It's a global industry worth billions. And as far as the channel's concerned, it's been a phenomenon now for 7 years. They've had a long time to embed themselves into that area, to get robust supply lines and to figure out, I mean, they even employ weather forecasters, meteorologists, to give them the best possible chance of a boat being launched, making it across to the UK. They are very sophisticated.
Mark, we were speaking yesterday about footage being released because it is quite unique footage that they've given us. This government actually being quite open and sharing more footage of the immigration, detention and border force process. One of our viewers, Sue Austin on Your Say, points out that every single person in that footage appeared to be a man. There were just lots and lots of young men there. That's why we're grateful for them releasing this footage. It's going to do nothing to dissuade a lot of the anger that we're expecting to see at protests tonight and, of course, over the weekend at asylum hotels and other Home Office-approved premises right across the country.
Well, indeed. It's going to be another potentially tense weekend of multiple protests taking place at these migrant hotels with very real concerns because of incidents, reported incidents, some that are currently making their way through the court process, which have alarmed local people. And we understand in Aldershot, for instance, this evening, there will be a protest similar to what we saw at the Britannia Hotel at Canary Wharf at the weekend, where you get mums and children coming out wearing pink. They want it to be, a non-threatening illustration of the concerns that they have. They are saying to their supporters, no masks, That will not be necessarily the case on the other side, where you've got the counter-protest and then a very ill-considered decision by the Labour group in this area to start pushing out these flyers, telling people to come along and to protest on behalf of the self-styled counter, racist protesters. We know that what they do, they are organised, very well organised, and the whole way in which they operate is to come and to challenge the other side, to shout them down, calling them neo-Nazis and racists and alike, just to up the tension at these events.
And that's what we've revealed this morning, Mark, isn't it? That the Labour group in Farnham sharing that counter-protest flyer. Now, in Aldershot early this year, there was footage revealed of the Hampshire Constabulary escorting some of those stand-up to racism, so-called counter-protesters, some of them masked. A lot of Aldershot locals saying to GB News last night and this morning that they're concerned about what could be happening this evening because of the promotion of that counter-protest by the local Labour group. And as we were just showing before, the protest flyer outside that hotel in Aldershot, where you've reported on previously, it's a pink protest. They're doing the same thing in Bracknell. They're promoting this idea that it's for families, for women, and so children come along as well, trying to move it away from any insinuation that this could be a violent demonstration, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. They want to show that it's concerned mothers for their children, so mothers and children will be there. They are saying quite pointedly to those that turn up, do not wear masks. They don't want that to be the image that they put forward as they are, trying to get that message of concern across. I think it's really ill-considered, I have to say, of this Labour group to do that. This is the governing party, and you've got communities right across the country who fear that there is two-tier operations in place, from policing through to the governance of this country, that sides with one particular group and not them, who have, they believe, very legitimate concerns about some of the issues of criminality that we're seeing springing up around these hotels.
Yeah, well, in response to that story, a Labour spokesperson told me last night that the government could not be clearer about what they were doing to tackle the small boats crisis and push back against criticism that it was siding with the hard left in this case.
Well, thank you very much, Mark White, for that, and we'll have the latest, as always, throughout the day on that developing story. Well, here's your chance to live mortgage or rent-free for a year and get a bonus £5,000 in your bank in the latest Great British Giveaway. And guess what? If you haven't got a mortgage or rent to pay, you can still enter and win £15,000. Here's all the details you'll need.
This is your chance to live mortgage or rent-free for an entire year in the latest Great British Giveaway. That's right, we'll give you a cash lump sum that will cover 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an incredible £20,000. Plus, we'll add £5,000 on top of that for you to treat yourself. And if you don't have a mortgage or rent to pay, lucky you, we'll give you £15,000 in cash instead. You have to hurry though, as lines will close on the 29th of August. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, still to come, we'll have more on the Umarell, that's Italian for men of retirement age who spend their time watching construction sites, especially roadworks, because we'll be joining Jack Carson in Derbyshire to do a bit of that himself.
I really thought you were making that up, Charlie, but the gallery seems to have found some pictures of them. Up next, Homelessness Minister Rushanara Ali quits her role after she booted out her tenants from a property and increased the rent by hundreds. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
Are the Prince and Princess of Wales animal abusers? It's time now for the head-to-head. Well, Peter's at it again, this time aiming at the Prince and Princess of Wales for daring to breed their Cocker Spaniels. The animal rights activists say that the royal couple are, quote, out of touch and slam them for churning out a litter while rescue centres are overflowing. It comes after Kensington Palace released a photo of Prince William and dog Orla and her 3 puppies, snapped by Kate for his 43rd birthday. So, is it really cruel? Are the royals cruel for breeding their dogs? Well, going head-to-head on this now, I'm pleased to be joined by Senior Corporate Projects Manager at Peter, Dr Caris Bennett, and dog trainer John Allison.
There's all these dogs that are desperately needing a home. Why breed more dogs into the world? It sends the wrong message. And in fact, you don't have to look far to see the right message. King Charles and Camilla adopted Molly, a lovely dog from an animal rescue. And we encourage everyone to do the same. If you're looking to have a companion animal at home, please go to an animal rescue, never breed dogs.
It's very important to note that it's natural for dogs to breed and create their puppies. I think it's absolutely ludicrous to label the royal family irresponsible. We just have to look at their incredible record of animal welfare and how much they have done for animal welfare throughout the country. Unlike an organisation like PETA, who only recently contributed to dogs being put in rescue centres when they supported the banning of the XL bully.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back, it's 10:23 and this is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie and Olivia, and we're very happy to say we're joined now by GP and GB News contributor Dr Renee Honderkemp and the Labour commentator Councillor Sebastian Sarlik, both in the studio this morning. Good morning, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm very well.
So well.
Smashing. Right, let's get cracking, shall we? Let's start with this top story. The front page on so many papers today. It's the Labour Homelessness Minister resigning. Sebastian, it's not a great look for a Labour minister, is it?
Not a great look, but it's good that she resigned. And what's especially good is that she resigned so quickly. And that was a trend that we saw build up under the previous government, was ministers clinging on for dear life well beyond the point where we knew that they could hold on. Under Labour, we're seeing ministers go very quickly after they accept wrongdoing. And I think that is the point to take away here. What we also shouldn't do is detract from the bill that we're talking about here, the Renters' Rights Bill, which is so important. It's a really big part of Labour's agenda, but also it's going to give so much power to renters. And that is something that we all know someone who rents, whether or not we do ourselves. And that is a tipping of the balance that we really need to see addressed.
Well, Renee, I saw you laughing a little bit there. Do you think there could be unintended consequences to that Renters' Rights Bill? Because that's what some of our viewers are saying.
I think it's a disaster. And I say that as a landlord who has just sold their flat and taken yet another property out of the market. Why? Because already, before this bill has come in, landlords now are so castigated. I had a tenant who never paid their bills, who smashed up my flat. It took me 20 months through the courts for the Section 21. He never once appeared in court. He didn't defend it, but it still took 20 months of no rent and a smashed up flat to actually get him out, so I sold it. What this bill is going to do, and this is the hypocrisy of this minister, is it's going to make it even harder for landlords to actually, just keep themselves afloat. This minister has campaigned for a particular clause which she broke, which is that if you take your property off the market as a landlord and then you try and sell it, and that doesn't work, so you put it back onto the market, there is a clause in this bill that says you will not be able to rent it for a year. So it's punishment. She, of course, would have fallen foul with that. She's not this time because she's not in place. This bill is going to drive more and more landlords, and I know many of them, out of the market, so it's going to push rents up. That's all it's going to do.
Can I just go back to Sebastian quickly? This idea that Labour ministers are resigning really quickly when they're being caught out. Tulip Siddiq, she spent weeks resisting these allegations of an improper link with her aunt, investigations into housing. It took a reporter going to Bangladesh and siphoning through files in a palace that had been abandoned for her then to eventually finally resign. Does that reflect the accuracy of the position you made earlier?
What I would highlight there is that was a really complex case and it took time for that to unfold. With this one today, it was very clear that there was wrongdoing.
Yes, enough
with the
truth
same
came out
situation with Andrew Gwynn putting unacceptable messages in WhatsApp groups, he accepted responsibility of that very quickly as well and went. As you would hope from a government that is sensible and grown up, and it's not something we're used to because it's not something we've had for a long time. I would come back on the point around landlords. Cry me a river if you are struggling with an investment that is not giving the returns you'd hope for. We will all know people who have been thrown out of homes because landlords want to rent it to the next person for more money. That is not a stable way to live.
But I think the point Renee is making here, she's not being particularly sympathetic to landlords per se. She's being sympathetic to renters because the long-term issue is that landlords will withdraw their houses from the rental market altogether, and that will push up the cost of renting, will it not?
What I want to see is the good landlords staying and the bad landlords getting out of the market. And I think what regulation does is encourages those who are willing to play by the rules to do it. I don't think being a landlord is inherently bad.
Sebastian, I was a good landlord. In fact, I loved my tenants so much, I took the rent down every year for 5 years because she got pregnant, she couldn't afford that. Then she left because she got divorced and I got a bad tenant. And so that was it, I withdrew from the market. Good landlords are not protected by this bill. They are leaving. I know 3 other people who are doing the same. This bill is going to destroy the market. And on the other hand, we're selling off our other properties to Serco for migrants.
So are you saying that tenants have too much power at the moment?
Well, I'm saying that landlords don't have enough power.
Do tenants have too much power at the moment?
Landlords don't have enough.
No.
And that's what we're talking about.
Do tenants have too much power at the moment?
Well, my tenant did. He spent 20 months.
Most tenants watching this would say they do not have power, especially if you have a family, especially if you go to a local school. Imagine getting thrown out of your home. It's life-changing.
This bill is not the answer. We have to stop that
from being able to happen.
This bill is not the answer.
Well, what would you do instead?
I don't know what I'd do.
Well, there we go. How can you criticise something if you don't have another solution?
Well, because I've experienced it. It doesn't work. That's how I can criticise it.
But it's so easy to criticise something if you can't say what you do instead.
Well, no, I've lived it, Sebastian.
No, I understand that.
I've lived
it's so easy to criticise something if you couldn't come up with an alternative
Tell me
solution.
how your bill would help my situation.
I don't know how my bill would help your situation, but it would help tenants, and that's what this is about. This is a renters' rights bill.
Would it help my tenants stay longer?
If I could just come in as a bit of an umpire here for a second. Is there not a bit of a possibility that talking about sort of renters versus landlords creates that automatic, only one side can win mentality? Really, fundamentally, we're fighting over the limited housing supply left, and what would be an excellent solution to all of this is to create more housing, have less of this sort of bickering between landlords. Look at this lovely agreement on the phone.
More housing.
I should do this for a living. Right, well, I'm glad we can all agree on that. And with that, let's move on to another story, because, Renee, we want to talk about the front page of the Express, pill for weight loss on the NHS. What's your take on this? Because the weight loss injections, they've caused a lot of controversy. Do you think pills will lessen that impact?
Well, look, I have lots of different views about this. If this is cheaper than the injections, then it has to be good for the NHS because the injections are going to cost zillions. However, I do think that we're putting a plaster over a problem without actually looking at the underlying issue, which is why are people so obese now? They weren't obese in the 1960s. What has changed? And it isn't genes and genetics. It's the environment that we live in. People are not cooking for themselves. They're eating ultra-processed food, which we know is not only making them fat, it's causing cancers to go through the roof, which we are seeing. What this is a plaster, because once people stop taking this, they will put the weight back on. It's proven, we know it. So these are drugs for life. All drugs have side effects. We don't know what the long-term side effects of this. This was a very small trial for this pill, 3,000 people. I say that there is a very small group of people who are morbidly obese, who are not moving, who've got ulcers on their legs, who can't exercise. Give it to them by all means.
What do you think about that, Seb? Is ultra-processed food the enemy here? Is that what we need to get to the root cause of?
Clearly part of the problem. I mean, look, unlike Renee, I'm not a medical professional, so I can only talk from my own experience. I wouldn't take these either. I worry about the side effects. I think there is a clear set of instructions if you want to lose weight. It is do more exercise and eat more healthily. Sounds simple. For many, it's really hard, and understandably so. But it doesn't change the fact that those are the fundamentals. And something like this, whilst, yes, you're right, it may be suitable for a certain amount of people, I don't want to see this go mainstream. I'll be really worried about this.
Do you know what? I'm the same. A lot of my friends have been using these injections or these pills. I'm not going to out them on air. I'm not going to name any names. They know who they are. Any of my friends have suddenly rediscovered their jawlines. And I'm very happy for them. But they can afford to do that. They already have sort of healthy lifestyles. And they're sort of doing it for that extra inch just to get the last bit off.
Were they really overweight, Charlie?
Well, I think so. They're not necessarily, right? I'm with you. There is an issue. We don't cook enough in this country, I think. People don't know how to cook. And that's something you see passed on through family. You should learn it even at school. That's a problem, isn't it, Sebastian? People not learning about those basic life skills.
Yeah, and look, you have seen Labour intervene in areas like this. You've got the family hubs that are opening up, which part of their job is to teach people these life skills. But I think there's only so much the state can do, really. It comes to a point where you would hope that, as you say, people do pass on recipes, much-loved dishes and all the rest
But we could do it at school, Sebastian.
You're right, we could do it at school.
Yeah,
we could do it. And we do. I mean, it's been a long time since I was at school.
We really
Food
don't.
tech, I cleaned up.
We really don't.
Mean custard, I'm sure. All right, well, Sebastian, Renee, it's been a pleasure. We'll see you again in the next hour. But before we move on to more coverage, let's get your 60-second news update with Katie Bowen.
Good morning. The headlines at 10:32. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has warned that the Israeli government's plan to take over Gaza City will only bring more bloodshed, labelling the plan wrong and urging the Israeli government to reconsider. The Energy Minister has said this morning that Rushanara Ali has not broken the law or any rules after she resigned over accusations of hiking rent on her own tenants. Rushanara Ali stepped down following claims she raised rent by hundreds of pounds just weeks after ending her previous tenant's contract. The government plans to introduce restriction zones for serious sexual and violent criminals, forcing them to stay in specific areas. The measures aim to allow survivors to go about their daily lives without fear of seeing their offender. President Trump has said that he's open to meeting Russian leader Vladimir Putin without Volodymyr Zelensky. That's as the US president's ceasefire deadline on Russia is set to expire today. A new guidance set to be published later this month will advise that trans women are banned from single-sex spaces. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Well, up next, a new bombshell report exposes legal human rights loopholes in our immigration system that allows migrants to access full state benefits before gaining indefinite leave to remain. Don't miss it. It's Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Good morning. This is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. For many of us, it is going to be a fine day today. Most of us will see some decent sunshine, and in that sunshine, it's going to feel pleasantly warm. But across the northern parts, it's a slightly different story. There is some wet weather here, quite persistent rain to start the day across parts of Shetland. Otherwise, across many parts of Scotland, there will be outbreaks of showery rain pushing through, and we have some blustery winds here as well. Across Northern Ireland and some parts of northern England, a bit cloudy at times, but across the rest of England and Wales, lots of sunshine, and in that sunshine, temperatures will rise. We're looking at highs of around 25 Celsius towards the southeast, so feeling pretty warm indeed. After a largely fine day, it's going to be a fine evening across much of England and Wales. Perhaps a bit more cloud pushing into some parts of the southwest, but it looks quite high cloud, so just turning the sunshine a bit milky. Otherwise, a fine picture for most. A bit more cloud still across parts of Northern Ireland and Northern England. 1 or 2 spots of rain can't be ruled out, but it's really across many parts of Scotland, especially the northern 2/3 of Scotland, where we have the greatest chance of some outbreaks of rain as we go through this evening. And still, those blustery winds. Most of the showery outbreaks will actually clear away for a little period of time across northern areas, but then a front is going to push its way in from the northwest. So some potentially heavy rain pushing into parts of northwest Scotland and maybe northwest Northern Ireland, but elsewhere across the rest of the country it's looking dry with some clear skies, and so temperatures maybe a touch lower than some recent nights, and with that there could be a few pockets of mist and fog first thing tomorrow morning. And then through tomorrow itself, that front towards the northwest does gradually edge its way a little bit further south and east, so just about pushing into parts of northern England, but it breaks up as it goes, so not bringing a huge amount of rain here. Plenty of showery bursts across Scotland following in behind, still quite blustery here, but a fine picture towards the southeast ahead of that front, and here temperatures look like they'll be a touch higher than today.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. The A92 Tay Road Bridge is closed to double-deck vehicles with a speed limit of 30 miles per hour due to high winds. Resurfacing work on the M4 westbound at junction 42, Earlswood, has led to a closure with diversions. In Cheshire East, delays occur on the M6 northbound between junctions 16 and 17 due to an incident, with only one lane open. Essex travellers should avoid the A12 northbound between junctions 19 and 20B, as all lanes are shut after a crash. And on the trains, expect major disruptions between Bedford and London St Pancras International, and between Peterborough or Cambridge and London King's Cross. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. It's 10:36 and this is Britain's Newsroom with me, Charlie Peters, and Olivia Utley.
Now, the think tank Onward warns that migrants are being granted full access to benefits without legally having the right to stay in the UK. Well, joining us now is director of the think tank Onward, Sir Simon Clarke.
Hello.
So what's going on here?
Well, it is a real abuse of loopholes within our visa system, which are intended to make sure that people who come here on temporary visas are able to financially support themselves. But if migrants can get themselves onto the right routes, underpinned by the ECHR, then we're finding that thousands of them are declaring themselves destitute and so eligible for public funds long before they're eligible for indefinite leave to remain. That's not something that should be happening under the system. It'll be costing us millions. And crucially, it's set to get worse because judicial rights creep under the European Convention on Human Rights means that the standard that people need to meet to prove that they're destitute, that they need access to public funds, is getting lower and lower and lower. And so 20,000 people have already got access to public funds over the last 5 years under this route, but that could go through the roof now because judicial rulings in the last 6 months have made things substantially worse.
So, Simon, sorry, Olivia, but there's one line here from your report pointing to how Nigerian nationals have submitted nearly double the number of successful applications to lift this no recourse to public funds visa condition in comparison to other nationalities. That's a remarkable outlier. What is behind that difference?
Well, clearly, we don't know in a sort of definitive way, but our best guess is that there must be an element here of gaming going on because people know how to abuse the system. Word then spreads in a community and people start to copy that tactic. And what we're seeing here is, I'm afraid, large-scale abuse of our generosity as a country. And it's exactly this which, of course, people are so fed up with. The country, already extends very generous protection to thousands of people every year, and now we've got another cohort of people expressly meant to be outside the scope of public funds who are gaming our goodwill and frankly abusing our human rights laws, which need to go, because this is, I'm afraid, yet another example of why the ECHR, the Human Rights Act, are the problem. They're not just a small part of the issue. They are driving the rights creep, which is allowing this to happen.
And if the Conservatives were in power, I mean, Kemi Badenoch's been beating around the bush about this a little bit. She's now just about beginning to talk about leaving the European Court of Human Rights. She's setting out some signs of kind of conversation. Are the Conservatives doing enough about this quickly enough?
Well, I mean, the first thing to say is that the government definitely isn't, because their white paper on immigration doesn't even bring this into scope. The Conservatives have said that they will make a definitive assessment of whether or not to leave the ECHR this autumn. I think that will mean an announcement at party conference in October. My strong suspicion is that the decision will be that we must leave, which is a massive change in party policy. It's something I've pushed for a long time. I think it's
a massive change in party policy, but doesn't it come a little bit too late? Reform have got that bandwagon.
I mean, you know, this is a big change, which I you know, if it does happen, Kemi will deserve a lot of credit for. The other thing I would say is that the Conservatives' deportation bill would really help to fix the problem I'm talking about. So the basis of that bill is that you can't qualify for indefinite leave to remain for a much longer period of time. In other words, the qualifying period is lengthened. But also that if you have used benefits or lived in social housing at any point on that qualifying journey, then you won't be eligible for ILR. That would fix the loopholes that we're talking about here.
And so, Simon, there is an issue, isn't there, about people changing their visas once they arrive here, which is...
Yeah, this is the core issue, right? Yeah,
but it goes beyond just moving your visa from, say, student visa to access to public funds visas, but also using it to shift onto asylum claims. That's an area of particular concern, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, basically, what people are doing here is they game getting onto the right route underpinned by the ECHR, and that then allows you to draw down public funds in a way which you wouldn't otherwise be able to. The real kicker, as our report sets out, is that last year there's a case where the standard for changing your conditions and being able to claim destitution and therefore being eligible for public funds has altered. And so it goes from being destitute to potentially being destitute. And if the gap's long enough in terms of assessing your claim, then self-certifying will be enough. I mean, this is crazy, right? I mean, this is in essence, an open door for anyone who's smart enough to walk through it. And clearly, as we're seeing in this case, the Nigerian community in Britain is particularly adept at doing this, and they're systematically abusing our hospitality.
And even Emmanuel Macron's pointed that out, hasn't he? He said that a third of people getting into the EU and the Schengen Agreement actually want to end up in the UK.
Yeah, and you know, there are many things that Macron is obviously dead wrong about. And the French...
exactly. Well, I mean... lockstep with Emmanuel Macron.
I mean, but he's not wrong that your welfare system can become a perverse incentive to move to the UK, right? And we are definitely at risk of rolling out the red carpet in a way that we oughtn't to be. What we're seeing here is something which Parliament definitely doesn't want to happen, being driven by the courts. And it's yet another example of why a broken human rights settlement is actually the #1 security and sovereignty problem for Britain at the border.
I look at this stuff, I do just think we are such mugs.
We are complete mugs.
Because we put forward these rules and these expectations on the understanding that everyone treats these systems like British people do, with this high-trust society where there's fair play and nobody tries to undercut or do something nefarious to game the system.
That's totally right.
But that doesn't work in a global world. People have different rules, different approaches. People from a lot of third world countries see gaming the system as a legitimate thing to do if it improves your family lot. And wouldn't you do the same?
Well, people are rational actors, right, in the end. And, you know, we see it all over different aspects of government. But the #1 thing I learned as a minister is if you look at the incentives you create, then you also understand the outcomes that you end up with. And this is a really good example where every single driver pushes people towards getting onto the right route, claiming destitution, drawing down public funds, and the courts are lowering that standard all the time.
And I imagine, too, that social media is making the problem worse. Gaming the system becomes extremely easy when there are TikTok videos being sent out to you, which are telling you exactly how to game that system.
Yeah, no, we have to accept that this is basically a market, and we heard Mark White talking about this a bit earlier in the programme, right, that there is a very sophisticated and fast-moving network which updates people all the time as to the right thing to do. And, what we must be seeing here in terms of the particular patterns with certain countries, and Nigeria, Pakistan, Ghana are all ones which we've uncovered Home Office data showing are particular problems, that the diaspora in those communities are obviously spreading the word, logically, but obviously immorally, that this is how you fix it for yourself. And how you can draw down very large sums. And the point here is, as I say, that as the judicial standards for doing this, become softer, the pool of people is very large. There are 3.6 million people in the UK on temporary visas right now. 3.6 million people who shouldn't be entitled to public funds. If a significantly larger number of those people start to do this, this is a massive problem.
That's a ticking time bomb. Well, Sir Simon Clarke, Director of the Onward think tank.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Olivia, one of the people getting in touch with us on Your Say, Joe Cleary, just saying, we also have destitute ex-servicemen living on the streets. Shouldn't they be getting help first? I think a lot of people watching will be agreeing with that.
Well, moving on, if you are in search of some holiday sun, here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Looking ahead to tomorrow, and the weather across southern Europe is looking pretty dry for most places, albeit a bit of rain is pushing across Madeira. Meanwhile, for Spain, Portugal and even France, the heat is continuing to build, so temperatures for some could be getting into the high 30s, maybe even low 40s through the weekend. Meanwhile, across parts of Italy, Greece, even into Turkey, lots of dry and hot weather here, and that's how the outlook is looking as well, staying largely sunny.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record. You say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
And it's 10:50. This is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie Peters and me, Olivia Utley. Now, in the market town of Derbyshire of Ashbourne, a £15 million redevelopment is putting a dampener on the summer tourism season.
Now, the streets are blocked off, machinery is causing noise pollution and tourists are steering clear. And it's not due to end until October. So GB News reporter Jack Carson is there to learn all about it. Jack, what's going on?
Well, let's just give you a glimpse of the roadworks that we're dealing with. This is all part of a £15 million regeneration scheme for the pedestrian part of this town, as well as also the community. You can see just the extent of the roadworks. Got some beautiful bunting, but is it actually attracting many people? Of course, it's the middle of the summer season. A lot of businesses relying on this part of the summer for that trade. Now, coming with us, we're going to go to the Cheddar Gorge cheese and bakery shop. So I'm very excited about this. We can see in the window some beautiful cakes, cornflake tart there, some cappuccino shortbread. So let's go in now and speak to Isabel Holden, who's from the shop. Beautiful cheese counter pies. It's all very tempting. But what's business like at the moment with the roadworks? What are the kind of issues that you're facing?
We've seen, I think, a downfall between this past June and July compared to last year. We're 15% down on sales. Based on Saturdays, we're 50% down on most weeks. It used to be our most consistent day. It's now completely unpredictable. As you can see outside those barriers, obviously you can see we've got a massive cake window, and a lot of our tourists and public come in and they see the cakes, and unfortunately due to the barriers you just can't see us.
Well, you're kind of almost at a dead end for the barriers as well, so people just kind of steer clear completely almost from coming down there. And you say they're 50% down on Saturdays. Is that a concern? Because I guess the summer season's massive to put you through the winter when maybe there isn't as much tourism.
We're quite busy with cheese orders and delivery boxes, but obviously summer and winter is to put you through, the rest of the season when it's not necessarily as touristy. So it is a massive concern for us, that if we're not as busy during summer, then we might struggle later on in a few months' time.
So what have the council said to you? Because we know there's a lot of businesses that have been looking for support. The council have said that they know that this was going to cause disruption, but that businesses are on side because of long-term what it's going to do. Do you kind of agree with that? What would you maybe like the council to do to help you out in the short term?
As obviously a small independent business here, I think we'd quite like to have some sort of compensation for the roadworks. I know obviously that it's meant to improve the town, it's going to look a lot nicer when it's done, but as I said, it began in, I think, January this year, and it's meant to be finishing in November. That's almost 12 months of trade lost. I don't think that a bit of compensation or saying, I'm sure we can help out in some way is quite going to go and fill that gap for us.
And what have customers said to you? Because like you say, we're almost at a little bit of a dead end with the roadworks. What have customers said to you as they've come in?
A lot of the phrases have been, it's a maze out there, because they kind of find us, they can't find us, they get to us, and they can't figure out a way out. It's kind of like, we're kind of locked into a pen here, and it's making it really hard for them to get to us.
And just give us a sense as well, of the kind of town this is, and actually, is it usually thriving in the summer months? Is it usually super busy? We saw the bunting outside; it looks beautiful. So, what's it like usually?
Obviously, we're a market town in the heart of the Beach District. It's meant to be a lovely little town, a quaint town to come and visit and live in. There's kids playing outside. There's people walking up and down the street. There's families. So it's usually hustle and bustle and sunshine.
So what kind of impact does it have then with you? I guess with buying in, the goods that you might buy in with, making what you make. Has it had an impact actually on the quantities of things and I guess how much you're spending, and even stuff going to waste?
Things we can spend, obviously, if we've got less profit, we can bring in less stock. So some months on slower days, you'll see we've got very little stock in, and that may be due to the fact that we just haven't got enough money to fund it. If not, it's delivery people who can't access us because the streets are just chaos.
Well, thank you so much. From the Cheddar Gorge, we've seen all the beautiful cheeses, all the beautiful pastries. I think I'm going to get some for lunch and tuck in. But you can heard from Isabel there, real impact that these roadworks are having here on businesses in the town of Ashbourne.
Thank you, Jack Carson. We've got a remarkable comment here on Your Say. Storm Tempest says, I don't like cake. And then 30 seconds later wrote, I hope that Jack buys cake. So there we go. All very strange, but there we go.
Well, still ahead, a GB News exclusive reveals a Labour group is under fire after it promoted an Asylum hotel counter-protest. We'll have the latest.
Yeah, that's an extraordinary story. Lots of people in Aldershot very concerned about that. We'll have all the latest on that, and this is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Right after, we're going to have the weather, but stay with us. Lots more coming up on the show.
Expect warm spells
with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. This is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. For many of us, it is going to be a fine day today. Most of us will see some decent sunshine, and in that sunshine, it's going to feel pleasantly warm. But across the northern parts, it's a slightly different story. There is some wet weather here, quite persistent rain to start the day across parts of Shetland. Otherwise, across many parts of Scotland, there will be outbreaks of showery rain pushing through, and we have some blustery winds here as well. Across Northern Ireland and some parts of Northern England, a bit cloudy at times, but across the rest of England and Wales, lots of sunshine, and in that sunshine, temperatures will rise. We're looking at highs of around 25 Celsius towards the southeast, so feeling pretty warm indeed. After a largely fine day, it's going to be a fine evening across much of England and Wales. Perhaps a bit more cloud pushing into some parts of the southwest, but it looks quite high cloud, so just turning the sunshine a bit milky. Otherwise, a fine picture for most. A bit more cloud still across parts of Northern Ireland and Northern England. 1 or 2 spots of rain can't be ruled out, but it's really across many parts of Scotland, especially the northern 2/3 of Scotland, where we have the greatest chance of some outbreaks of rain as we go through this evening. And still, those blustery winds. Most of the showery outbreaks will actually clear away for a little period of time across northern areas, but then a front is going to push its way in from the northwest. So some potentially heavy rain pushing into parts of northwest Scotland and maybe northwest Northern Ireland, but elsewhere across the rest of the country it's looking dry with some clear skies, and so temperatures maybe a touch lower than some recent nights, and with that there could be a few pockets of mist and fog first thing tomorrow morning. And then through tomorrow itself, that front towards the northwest does gradually edge its way a little bit further south and east, so just about pushing into parts of northern England, but it breaks up as it goes, so not bringing a huge amount of rain here. Plenty of showery bursts across Scotland following in behind, still quite blustery here, but a fine picture towards the southeast ahead of that front, and here temperatures look like they'll be a touch higher than today.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
This is your chance to live mortgage or rent-free for an entire year. We'll give you a cash lump sum that will cover 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an incredible £20,000. Plus, we'll add £5,000 on top of that for you to treat yourself. You have to hurry though, as lines will close on the 29th of August. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record. You say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's 11 a.m. on Friday, the 8th of August, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie Peters and Olivia Utley.
Homelessness Minister quits. Rashuna Ali branded a hypocrite for evicting her tenants and then pumping up the rent. Deputy Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Daisy Cooper, spoke to GB News a little bit earlier today.
The fact of the matter is she has acted within the law, but as a minister she was trying to change the law and she hasn't acted in the spirit of the new law that she wanted to introduce. So I think she's right to resign.
And this morning, Sir Keir Starmer has condemned Israel's war cabinet for approving plans to take control of Gaza City. And here is the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaking about that.
We want to liberate ourselves and liberate the people of Gaza from the awful terror of Hamas.
And the Equality and Human Rights Commission tells schools, hospitals, leisure centres and cinemas to ban trans women from using single-sex spaces like toilets and changing rooms.
One pill per day will keep the fat rolls away because trials of a daily obesity tablet show it can help patients lose around 12% of their body weight over 72 weeks. And it could be coming to the NHS soon.
Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Just don't do it if you're in Great Yarmouth, as independent MP Rupert Lowe mistakes charity rowers for small boat migrants on X.
And there's some roadworks rage because the market town of Ashbourne in Derbyshire is facing a summer of traffic cones, red lights and angry local businesses. But Jack Carson is there with us.
Well, the council say that this £15 million regeneration scheme will improve the town and the community. There's signs that say businesses are open as usual, but they say it's anything but, and they're worried about their futures.
And we'd love to hear what you think on renters reform, on Jack Carson and what he's up to watching those roadworks in Ashbourne. What do you think? Are you going to be affected by that or anything else which takes your fancy this morning? We've already had so many emails in. Please do keep them coming.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by Jack's little trip to Ashbourne because the effect of scaffolding on businesses in London is a massive issue. People hate it when their building puts up scaffolding. The loss of footfall is tremendous because you can't advertise your business. People just forget you're there.
And they say they're open all day, open as usual, but I never really believe it.
Yeah, there's something quite menacing about being surrounded by roadworks, isn't it? Well, yeah, please do get in touch. gbnews.com/your say. Lots to get through this hour, but before we get stuck into that, let's go speak to Katie Bowen with all the latest news headlines.
Charlie, Olivia, thank you. The headlines at 2 minutes past 11. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has warned that the Israeli government's plan to take over Gaza City will only bring more bloodshed, labelling the plan wrong and urging the Israeli government to reconsider. Benjamin Netanyahu met with his security cabinet last night and received approval for a military takeover of Gaza City and a phased reoccupation plan, saying it's the only way to remove Hamas and liberate the people of Gaza. The UN has warned of catastrophic consequences. The Security Cabinet also adopted 5 principles for ending the entire war, including disarming Hamas, the return of all hostages, and the demilitarisation of Gaza. It comes as Prime Minister Netanyahu said Israel intends to take control of all of Gaza. The Energy Minister has said this morning that Rashuna Ali has not broken the law or any rules after she resigned over accusations of hiking rent on her own tenants. Rashuna Ali stepped down following claims she raised rent by hundreds of pounds just weeks after ending her previous tenant's contract. In her resignation letter, Ms Ali insisted she followed all legal requirements, but admitted staying on would be a distraction from the government's work. Sir Keir Starmer thanked her and said her legacy would leave a lasting impact. Conservative Party Chairman Kevin Hollinrake said her position was untenable.
I think actually what Rashuna Ali did was quite extreme, actually, and I've been in the property business a long time, and to basically end a tenancy and then put the rent up by 20% for the next tenant is quite extreme, and most landlords don't do that. And particularly when you're advocating a change yourself and moralising about that change, your position is just not tenable.
Elsewhere, President Trump has said that he's open to meeting Russian leader Vladimir Putin without Volodymyr Zelensky. That's as the US president's ceasefire deadline for Russia is set to expire today. Yesterday, a White House source said that Putin must meet with Zelensky for the meeting between President Trump and Putin to occur. However, when asked last night if that would be necessary, the US president said that it wasn't, abandoning a previous pledge for three-way peace talks. The Kremlin has said that the meeting between the two leaders could happen within days, adding that a location has been agreed. Just days ago, President Trump declared Russia an extraordinary threat to the US, where he first rolled out a wave of sanctions against Putin as his refusal to stop the war in Ukraine. David Lammy is set to meet US Vice President J.D. Vance today amid those ongoing conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine. The Foreign Secretary is expected to host Mr Vance at Chevening, his official country retreat in Kent, as the Vice President begins a summer holiday with his family in the UK. They'll discuss UK-US relations in a bilateral meeting before being joined by their families. The US and UK have found themselves at odds on Gaza, with Sir Keir Starmer's pledge to recognise a Palestinian state if Israel does not agree to a ceasefire, drawing criticism from Washington. A 4-year-old boy has died after being hit by a bus outside a hospital in Kent. Police were called to the collision outside the Queen Elizabeth Queen Mother Hospital in Margate just after 4 p.m. yesterday. The boy was hit by a white single-decker bus which was travelling near the entrance to the A&D department, Kent Police said. He was taken back inside the hospital where he was pronounced dead soon after. Investigators from Kent's Police Serious Collisions Investigations Unit are urging anyone with relevant information to come forward. And new guidance set to be published later this month will advise that trans women are banned from single-sex spaces. The Equality and Human Rights Commission is set to advise schools, hospitals, leisure centres and cinemas to ban trans women from using single-sex spaces, including lavatories and changing rooms. Guidance from the EHRC will apply to any organisation that provides services to the public, extending to government departments, the NHS and prisons. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More from me in half an hour.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3440 and €1.1546. The price of gold is £2,532.79 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 9,094 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Hello, welcome back. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News with me, Charlie Peters and Olivia Utley.
And you've all been getting in touch, well, probably not every single one of you, but lots of you have been getting in touch to share your thoughts. We've had lots and lots of thoughts on the Renters' Right Bill, quite a few landlords getting in touch. One here from Stella saying, René is correct that the Renters' Right Bill will force the best landlords to sell up. In fact, many already have. Myself. Now, she says that she's an ethical landlord. She was in the market for 30 years, but it's now just too difficult. And I do worry that that will be happening across the country. We've also had Steve Wallace writing in, talking about what Simon Clark was here talking about. That I wonder how all those legal eagles who are making a tidy living out of assisting illegal migrants to game the benefit system by abusing ECHR legislation would feel if they suddenly found a load had been plonked next door to them. I suspect they might not be so eager to assist. Well, that's basically the point that some of these protesters are making. They don't like these people living on their doorsteps. They're worried for the safety of their children, and they are probably not the same demographic of people as the pretty well-paid human rights lawyers who are helping these migrants stay here.
It's such an obvious concern, and I'm astonished by the number of people who don't seem to understand why these protests are taking place. It's so obvious why you'd be disturbed if your local area, and a lot of these areas are very tight-knit, small towns, some of them even villages, suddenly overwhelmed by the arrival of hundreds of people being put into these locations. And the government's current position of saying we'll speed up dealing with the claims, we'll fast-track the claims and then disperse them into HMOs around the country. People realise, that they don't seem to realise, I think, that it's not anger at the process or how long it takes to approve the asylum claims. It's anger that they're here in the first place.
Exactly, and it does feel a little bit like rearranging chairs on the Titanic. I think also, I feel like I'm always banging on about my baby, but since becoming a mum, you do feel differently about these things. You do worry about your children's safety in a really, really visceral way. And these mums who are out there protesting, they're not far right. They're not far right at all. They are genuinely worried about their children not being able to play safely in a local playground surrounded by strange men.
Absolutely. Well, on this theme, GB News can reveal this morning that a local Labour group is under fire because it promoted a counter-protest in Aldershot in favour of housing asylum seekers in hotels.
Well, it comes as the government published the first pictures of its new returns deal with France. And we're joined now by GB News Home Security Editor Mark White.
Talking of strange men.
I did look at you at that moment. That wasn't deliberate at all. So tell us what's been going on, Mark.
Well, let's have a look at those pictures, first of all, because they are a fascinating insight into what happens to these migrants as they arrive in Dover. Clearly, the government wants to get the message across, but whatever their reasoning, it's good for us to be able to see this, for them to be a bit transparent. This is Western Jetfoil at Dover Harbour, the migrants coming up the gangway and into these marquees and other porta-cabin buildings, and it's the medical checks, the triage of the migrants that takes place initially there before they are then moved on to the main facility, which on the next video we can show you is Manston, just further down the coast near Manston Airport. And there it's a bigger facility. They're held there for 48 hours while multiple checks take place. Biometrics checks, the likes of fingerprints, DNA, to try to find out who these people are, whether they're on any international databases, because, of course, the government just don't know if they're a security risk, because the thing that people smugglers do is tell the migrants to dump their passports and other identifying documents to ensure that you have the best possible outcome of inventing a backstory to make your asylum claim that bit more worthy. Here we're looking at an immigration detention and removal centre. We believe it's Harmondsworth near Heathrow Airport, although not confirmed by the Home Office, because that first cohort of migrants that have come across the Channel, and it's very modest, it's a very small number. The government won't confirm exactly how many, but the first group are not being bussed off to their local four-star hotel or house of multiple occupation. They are instead going to this detention centre to await a return to France, which might take a few weeks at least. And I say a few weeks, that's, you know, a positive estimate, because once the human rights lawyers and activists work their magic, as they often do, as the previous government will tell you, it was frustrating their efforts to enact the Rwanda deal, not just for months, but for years. So it's possible this whole scheme could get bogged down. But the government's trying to be positive. At the moment, they believe there's not an issue with returning these migrants to a safe country, France.
And Mark, as they're going through this process, there is anger spiralling in a lot of communities where these asylum hotels or HMOs are operating. Police are bracing for around a dozen protests today and this weekend. Now, we were in Epping in Essex for much of the last month, where we saw over a dozen different forces supporting Essex police there to contain a planned peaceful protest one Thursday. How are they going to manage all these different locations? Because the Chief Constable of Essex Police, B.J. Harrington, is also the National Police Chief Constable's lead on this issue. And he had a bit of a difficult time, didn't he, in Essex?
Yeah, he did. And the way that the police manage it is to call on mutual aid. But every force has their own manpower issues in dealing with the day-to-day demand that the service in their community requires. So sending a few carriers full of police officers to neighbouring forces is a drain on all their resources. And the longer this continues, the more problematic it's going to be. And especially if they over-police what are peaceful protests. And we know that, you know, the vast majority have been peaceful until, of course, the counter-protesters turn up and then the temperature rises. But in Aldershot tonight, where I believe you will be, Charlie, for GB News, it's going to be, we're told, a very peaceful protest organised by the local community. They want to model it on what we saw at the Britannia Hotel in Canary Wharf last weekend, where mums and their children and other supporters were out wearing pink and telling people not to wear masks. There was a group that came masked up in the end, and some of those were arrested by the police. And the hope has to be that it stays peaceful, that they can get their message across, that they're very concerned at these migrant hotels with lots of young men hanging around and, of course, criminality linked to a number of these hotels.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. I think that's a really interesting point you raised there about the danger of sort of over-policing, and I wonder if we'll get into a situation where the police start sort of turning on the government a bit. It's the government who've made their job so difficult here, and that could start to become quite an uncomfortable relationship. But we're joined now by social policy analyst Rakib Ehsan. Britain feels more divided than ever, does it not, Rakib?
No, absolutely. And I think that you can see there in various parts of the country, you have opposing protesters over the small boats emergency. And I think that'd be very difficult to bridge two vastly different opinions. Now, it's very clear what my opinion is. I think the small boats emergency is a fundamental threat to social cohesion in many parts of the country. And now the impacts of it are going into provincial corners of England, where I don't even understand how they even have the social and cultural infrastructure to deal with the dispersal of asylum seekers, which in my view, many of them clearly being illegal migrants. And I think we've talked a great deal here about Epping. I think what's really interesting here is we're seeing these mother-led localised revolts against the small boats emergency, and it'd be very difficult for the UK government and those who may have a liberal position on matters of immigration and asylum to caricature, which in my view are rightly concerned mothers, as far right and racist, because I don't think that's the case at all, actually.
There's a lot of concern being shared by police officers, including Chief Constable BJ Harrington, who is the chair of the NPCC Operations Coordination Committee, saying that there has been a spread of disinformation and misinformation, which he fears could lead to these protests being whipped up or being led by sort of more dangerous actors. But at the same time, the police are quite understandably being criticised for not being transparent about the individual cases that spark some of these protests, in particular in Nuneaton in Warwickshire, where police have dismissed claims that it held back information over the alleged abuse of a 12-year-old girl. A lot of these protests are likely to be more angry, Rakib, because there's not a lot of transparency about these hotels and the people inside them.
No, absolutely, and that was the thrust of my piece that I actually authored for GB News, is that we have a huge transparency deficit at the heart of what in my opinion, is our failing democracy. And I think that when it comes to charges, and especially surrounding sexual offences against underage girls, I think we have to be very clear. The public authorities in question need to be far more transparent when it comes to the ethnic background and immigration status of those who are facing those charges. And otherwise, you will have people complaining about conspiracy theories being disseminated in the online space. Well, the public authorities should be more transparent to begin with. But I think that what's very clear is that when we're looking at the small boats emergency, you could talk about disinformation, but it's a reality that in Epping, that the Bell Hotel, where small boat migrants were rehomed, that was only just half a mile away from a Church of England coeducational, where a significant proportion of the pupil population were teenage girls. So it doesn't sound like to me that the relevant authorities are making those robust child safeguarding assessments when it comes to our asylum seeker dispersal system.
Well, thank you very much, Rakib. And I think that's a really interesting point that you're making there about that point Rakib was making about the transparency. I think that is so key to all of this, because we cannot end up in a situation where the public belief in the police begins to erode, because that becomes very, very dangerous indeed.
And we saw the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, saying earlier this week that she actually does think the police should be releasing more information. And, you know, I remember in May, in Liverpool, sent up there after that collision at the trophy parade, the police there, Merseyside police, very quick to release the information about the suspect there in that case, saying that he was a white British man,
very quick.
Immigration status, all very clear. But on the alleged offences taking place around some of these asylum hotels, they've gone a bit quiet. And that's obviously not Merseyside police, that's other police forces being involved here. But Mark White's been saying this all year. They set a standard in May, and I don't think they've met it in other
No,
places.
I think that's true, and that leads to people making theories online, and that leads to this snowballing effect where these protests are just going to get bigger and bigger. It doesn't feel like there's going to be an end to them anytime soon.
Indeed.
But in brighter news, here's your chance to live mortgage or rent-free for a year and get a bonus £5,000 in your bank in the latest Great British Giveaway. And guess what? If you haven't got a mortgage or rent to pay, lucky you can still enter and win £15,000. Here's all the details you need.
This is your chance to live mortgage or rent-free for an entire year in the latest Great British Giveaway. That's right, we'll give you a cash lump sum that will cover 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an incredible £20,000. Plus, we'll add £5,000 on top of that for you to treat yourself. And if you don't have a mortgage or rent to pay, lucky you, we'll give you £15,000 in cash instead. You have to hurry though, as lines will close on the 29th of August. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, do you remember the phrase at school, snitches get stitches, dealing with those playground informants? Well, how do you feel about the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, admitting this?
Was the tattletale in the class, like getting people into trouble. And I remember there was this extraordinary day. I was in, I must have been about 14 or 15. And I said, he's cheating. I stood up in the middle of the exam and I stood up and said, he's cheating, he's the one that's doing it. And that boy ended up getting expelled.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, it's 11:25 and this is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie Peters and me, Olivia Utley. We're joined by GP and GB News contributor René Honderkamp and Labour councillor in the studio here, Sebastian Salak. And I'm going to start here with this really interesting story in the Daily Mail. You can track your child by their trainers. Parents are keeping on tabs with their kids with AirTags hidden in their shoes. Now, René, you're shaking your head at this. My instinct is to shake my head too. The idea that we're sort of keeping such close tabs on children in the real world and then online we're letting them do whatever they like.
Exactly. I mean, look, what really threw me about this is it was for 4 to 8 year olds. Now, I have she's 7 tomorrow year old.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah, and I don't need to track her. I take her where she goes. I pick her up when she's finished. She's not going to deviate from there in between. I do not need to track her. And I think it comes back to this nanny state where we're cosseting our kids and not giving them any freedom. I find it really chilling, actually.
Well, hang on. You said you don't need to track them, and this is a nanny state issue, but it sounds like your daughter's never out of your sight. You always know where she is.
No, I leave her somewhere and then I go
6 years old.
When I was a little lad, and I think this is a huge trend that's changing in England in particular, the circle of freedom that children have had growing up. When I was a boy, my kids, my parents, I should say, would say, right, get out the door, we'll see you at supper. You know, don't come back. Go out and go cycle, go with your friends.
Charlie,
and it would
I
extend for a long time.
absolutely agree. But right now, the way my daughter's life works out is I'll take her to a trampoline squad, leave her there and pick her up. I don't anticipate that in that time. I don't worry that she's going to be anywhere else. I don't worry that she's going to stroll out the door. You know, I don't. I see that if, God forbid, a child went missing, you could then use this positively. But that's so rare that we shouldn't cause it them. You're absolutely right. They should be out on their bikes. They should have some freedom.
But it's not happening that way, is it?
But then I think the thing is, Sebastian, I don't know what you think about this, but you know, I think in theory it's great for children to have lots of freedom. In practice, I would worry about my children, and I think that says something about the kind of face of changing Britain. 30 years ago, perhaps it was safer for children to go out and play on the streets. Is there an element of that?
I mean, I wasn't here 30... Well, I was, but I was very small 30 years ago, so it's hard to comment on that. I do think we should be able to trust our children to go out and play. The nanny state point is an interesting one. I don't think there's anything nanny state about this. There's nothing state about this. This is an individual choice of a person to go out and buy an AirTag and stick it in a shoe.
True.
And you can stick that AirTag in a pocket or in a backpack or anything. If you want to track your kids, the tools are there for you to be able to do that at the moment. So it's a bizarre one, but ultimately it comes down to the choice of the individual. Who wants to do this? Some people are more relaxed.
Well, it does.
Kind of fine, isn't it?
But Olivia is right. On the flip side of that, we have kids with 6 who have phones who can access goodness knows what and are accessing it. And parents don't see that as dangerous. They're more worried about things that aren't really going to happen, very rarely going to happen, and they should be riding their bike around the block.
Yes, no, I'm of that view as well. So I have to say, I think the Find My tracking apps are really
creepy, generally weird. I think they're weird.
They're so useful.
I was about to say really helpful.
Oh,
yeah,
I don't like it.
I think they're great. Yeah.
I'm such a boomer.
iPods all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, finding your own stuff is one thing.
Not finding your family members.
No,
Where did I
creepy.
leave my mum? Where have I left her in the shopping centre? Right, let's move on now, Sebastian, because let's talk about page 9 of the Telegraph. Train staff want more pay to scan e-tickets. A long-running battle, an endless battle, really, isn't it, in terms of these companies versus the consumer?
Yeah, and I think it speaks to how well unionised the rail employees are, which I would say is a really good thing. If you want to be able to have more pay, you have to bargain collectively to be able to get it. On this occasion, they got a pay rise last year, 9.5% over 2 years, the train guard. So it's a bit of a difficult one to come back and start asking for more. You see the parallel there with the doctors as well. But ultimately, I defend their right to have a go. I don't think the government will be very obliging on this one. We have a government that is very pro-union. I think everybody in the cabinet is a member of union, as you have to be if you are a Labour MP. But then comes down to the finer details of what is really fair here. But having that conversation is really important.
Well, if even Seb, who, as he said there, is very pro-union, doesn't believe that these train guards should get a pay rise, is there anyone left in the country who feels sorry for train guards?
Well, apparently the new guy who's running this union, who's taken over from Mick Lynch, Dempsey, I believe his name is, he believes actually that there should be no trade union laws, and he's quoted as saying in the papers today that he should be able to take his men out or women out on strike at the drop of a hat, because that's what they should be able to do. So he's with them and he wants them to have more power, not less.
Right, before we go away, I can't leave without us talking about this story in the Telegraph. First covered in the BBC, this Kemi Badenoch, the snitch. She said that she was a tattletale in school. She got a fellow pupil expelled after she caught him cheating in an exam.
What I love about this is that she said she stood up in the middle of a test and called out a boy who was breaking the rules. I mean, that is so Kemi Badenoch. I've interviewed her, you've interviewed her. That is exactly what she's still like. People don't change, do they?
I'm perplexed as to why she would admit this, because I don't think that
I think it's quite an unattractive character trait.
I don't think people will like this. If she thinks it makes her more likeable, I think she's wrong.
I think it's, you know, it's fair play when we all play fair, right? And
Yes.
I think people in Britain...
You're such a teacher, Charlie.
Well, do you know what I am a little bit? I'm a bit of a stickler for rules. I don't know, maybe it's... the Surrey boy in me. But I do think we have an issue in this country where we hate tattletales and we hate snitches, but at the same time, we get really annoyed when people don't pay for their train
that's
fare.
true. I was going to say, when people barge through those ticket barriers.
When people don't pay for the tube, or we really hate thieves in this country as well. So it's a weird national misnomer that we have.
That's a fiscal strategy. Is it going to work?
Yeah.
Is it going to win anyone over? I would like to meet anyone. If you are watching and you are going to be won over by this, I want to hear from you, because I want to know who you are.
Do get in touch. We would love to hear that. Thank you very much for our panel. That's really great. And here is your 60-second news update with Katie Bowen.
Good morning. The headlines at 11:31. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has warned that the Israeli government's plan to take over Gaza City will only bring more bloodshed, labelling the plan wrong and urging the Israeli government to reconsider. The Energy Minister has said this morning that Rushanara Ali has not broken the law or any rules after she resigned over accusations of hiking rent on her own tenants. Rushanara Ali stepped down following claims she raised rent by hundreds of pounds just weeks after ending her previous tenant's contract. The government plans to introduce restriction zones for serious sexual and violent criminals, forcing them to stay in specific areas. The measures aim to allow survivors to go about their daily lives without fear of seeing their offender. President Trump has said he is open to meeting Russian leader Vladimir Putin without Volodymyr Zelensky. That's as the US president's ceasefire deadline for Russia is set to expire today. And new guidance set to be published later this month will advise that trans women are banned from single-sex spaces. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
And up at noon is Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Dawn. Tom has managed to seat himself. He nearly fell off his chair there.
This is... OK, can I
It's a tricky
just
chair.
say...
I agree.
Can I just say, this chair is somehow about 3 inches lower than any other chair here. So if it didn't have this really rather attractive cushion...
Tom.
If it didn't have this attractive cushion, I wouldn't be sitting down in a chair I would be sat like this. We would do the entire show I mean, what is going on with the furniture here?
It's just short man syndrome, to be honest with you.
2 coffees this morning, Tom?
No, none at all. None yet. We should say...
It's going to be a long show. That'll be very long.
We should say that the show will mainly not be focusing on the inadequacy or otherwise of furniture. We will be talking...
Or the inadequacy of Tom.
We will be talking, of course, about J.D. Vance. Now, he, the US Vice President, is in the United Kingdom. He's staying with Foreign Secretary David Lammy. Oh, to be a fly on the wall over those family conversations. But we should get some live pictures of the two leaders as they meet.
Yeah, and what they both have in common, which includes sticky toffee pudding.
Oh, I'm with them there.
Come on.
And also Christianity, which is really interesting.
Yeah, but sticky toffee pudding is funnier.
That's true. That's true. That's
ruining the mood.
It's the light and the shade that you get with our show.
Yeah,
but there is they sort of both talk about their backgrounds, their upbringing, their faith. So there is some sort of, even though they have completely differing political sort of standpoints, there is some common ground there. So it'll be interesting to see how that shapes out.
Of course, J.D. Vance, huge Anglophile.
Yeah.
He loves being here, you can tell.
Absolutely.
What else you got, Dawn?
We have got loads of other stuff coming up. We're obviously covering the migrant hotel protests as well, which I know you are going to later on as well, and sort of like discussing that as much as we can. We know there's loads coming up over the weekend. You're going to talk about interest rates or something really unsexy, aren't you?
So we had an interest rate cut yesterday.
And that's enough. Thank you very much.
You'd think that would make debt change. Government debt has become more expensive overnight. It's a peculiar effect, and it's made things difficult. It's made things difficult for Chancellor.
I am.
OK, folks, all of that and
we've got bananas.
Oh, and bananas.
We do bananas.
We are going to be eating bananas live on air, and we'll tell you all about it. We'll keep that one. There's some suspense there.
Right, up next here on Britain's Newsroom, we'll have the former Defence Secretary, Sir Grant Shapps, who's joining us to discuss his plan for the Conservatives to win back the rural vote. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. See you very shortly.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a dry and bright day for most of us. There will be a lot of cloud around and there'll be some showery rain in the far north, mostly to the north of the central belt of Scotland because of these fronts toppling in over an area of high pressure which is building from the south. That's going to bring increasingly summery weather over the next few days and increasingly high temperatures by early next week, especially across the south and the east of the UK. But for the time being, it's pleasant enough out there. Yes, a lot of cloud around, but some breaks in the clouds, some decent sunny spells coming through. It's breezier for northern areas, and certainly we've got strong winds in the far north and northwest with outbreaks of rain. That's going to make it feel cool, but warm enough in the sunshine elsewhere. Then heading into the evening, any cloud in the south tends to fade away, but we keep the cloud in the north with further showers across much of Scotland. Again, that strong breeze across the north and northwest of Scotland, and it's going to be fairly gusty for Northern Ireland as well as Northern England, but clear spells emerging. And for the southern half of the UK, lighter winds, still warm as we head into Friday evening. But it does cool off fairly quickly. It's going to be a relatively fresh night across southern parts under clear skies and with light winds. Brisk breezes towards the north with outbreaks of persistent and at times heavy rain pushing into the north and northwest of Scotland, then later on into Northern Ireland. And temperatures dipping to the single figures in some sheltered spots. Otherwise, we're talking about 12 to 15 Celsius by dawn on Saturday. Plenty of sunshine for England and Wales, but for Scotland and Northern Ireland, we do have this band of rain moving through. That's going to peter out as it pushes into Northern England and North Wales, mainly an area of cloud and drizzle by this stage. Blustery showers into the north of Scotland. Bright skies to the south, plenty of sunshine, highs into the mid-20s. It's going to turn even hotter by Monday and Tuesday.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
And it's 11:38. This is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie and Olivia. Now, in the Derbyshire market town of Ashbourne, a £15 million redevelopment is putting a dampener on the summer tourist season. Reports say that the streets are blocked off, machinery is causing noise, pollution, and tourists are steering clear. And it's not due to end until October.
Well, GB News reporter Jack Carson has made the journey to Ashbourne to find out for himself if it really is more of a ghost town this summer. Good morning, Jack. How's it going over there?
Well, it certainly feels like that, and you can hear the drilling, the grinding that we've heard this morning as they prepare, the new pathways and pedestrian areas, and that's fantastic that the council say is going to really improve the local area. This is just some of the roadworks here. Notice saying businesses open as usual. They certainly don't feel like a lot of those businesses actually are doing successfully. We heard from one business in the last hour who say around 50%, on Saturdays is what their trade is down. Now, Nick Adams, chairman of the Derbyshire County Council, it joins us now. Nick, thanks for joining us and meeting us this morning. Some of these roadworks behind us as well. What's your kind of feeling around this as the chairman of the County Council?
I'll just say, I am chairman of Derbyshire County Council, but this is my role as a county councillor. So I'm county councillor for Dovedale and Ashbourne North. So, this all came about, I think, following COVID. There were temporary obstructions really to make the pavements wider put in, and people thought that's a good idea. So this has flown on from that. So there was some merit in the project to start with. There is merit in the project, but there's been a lot of issues that have come up as it's gone about, as it happened, and it's really caused a lot of disruption to the town, and not just the town, the surrounding areas.
Well, there's a lot of businesses that have told us, and one business told us this morning that their trade's down 50% on a Saturday. Yeah. These are the summer seasons. Yes. What can you do, I guess, in your power, to try and help this actually make it easier for businesses and at least get people to still come here, even with the disruption? We were elected at the beginning of May, so within a week I had a meeting and we raised all the concerns of residents and of businesses. A lot of businesses are down a lot more than that, and I think some have gone out of business, but I'm not sure necessarily for this reason, but they have. Well-established businesses are certainly down 30% globally, so it's having a big impact. We looked at the parking, which altered last week, so it's now free from 2 o'clock in the afternoon. From next Monday, it's going to be free from noon. But this has taken, we're now in the last few weeks of the project, within 4 weeks of the end of the project. This has been going on since March, end of March. So it's been very hard to find anything that could ameliorate the issues that business are having. But it's just the way people's daily lives as well. Traffic has been difficult. We've looked at altering the signage, altering the traffic signals, which we've got smart traffic signals, but they're not that smart maybe, and we've not managed to, the solutions we've tried haven't really helped. But people trying to get children to school, pick up children from nursery, get from living on one side of town to work on the other, it's just been very difficult because this is believe it or not, this is a national trunk road. And there's a lot of traffic has to move through this beautiful Georgian town. Well, there's a lot of concern, isn't there, for when this is done around what might well be the case with HGVs and stuff. Obviously the county council in charge of hires. What can you do? Try and this beautiful work's going to be done. I guess you don't want it to all be undone because a huge lorry comes down and breaks all the nice new paving slabs. Exactly, and I'm looking and gathering ideas about what we can do to improve the traffic flow when it reopens. The road here, Compton and Digg Street, Compton Bridge is a very old bridge. It hasn't got a weight limit on it, so we're going to get 30-ton trucks coming along there, turning 90 degrees here. The approach is supposed to be sufficient for a HGV to get round, but it is a concern, and these paving slabs are supposed to be up to it, but if a HGV starts running on them, we might get cracking and damage, and as the county council, then we're going to be left with the maintenance bill, and it's cost a lot of money to do this and taken a lot of time, so we don't want to be closing the town again to repair the damage or the cost of it.
Councillor Nick Adams, thank you so much for joining us this morning and giving us the perspective of the County Council and I guess how they're dealing with this, you know, from that highways point of view and trying to minimise the disruption that way. You know, the beautiful bunting, beautiful celebration of Britain down this high street, but of course the problem for the businesses is that they're losing customers with trade and footfall in the town down this summer.
Thank you, Jack Carson. And we've got John Williams on Your Say saying, Ashbourne, a lovely town, messed up by the council. And lots of other people have been talking about this, Olivia, watching this clip from Derbyshire saying they've got the same dramas in their town as well. So we could be sending our national reporter, Jack Carson, to some more roadworks near you.
And won't he enjoy it? And moving on, here are your top holiday destination weather forecasts.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Looking ahead to tomorrow, and the weather across southern Europe is looking pretty dry for most places, albeit a bit of rain is pushing across Madeira. Meanwhile, for Spain, Portugal and even France, the heat is continuing to build, so temperatures for some could be getting into the high 30s, maybe even low 40s through the weekend. Meanwhile, across parts of Italy, Greece, even into Turkey, lots of dry and hot weather here, and that's how the outlook is looking as well, staying largely sunny.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record. You say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. You're watching Britain's Newsroom with me, Charlie Peters, and Olivia Utley. And we're joined now by Sir Grant Shapps, who's the former Defence Secretary and co-chairman of Conservatives Together. Good morning, Sir Grant.
Morning.
Now, we're here to talk to you about this plan you have for the Conservatives to rebuild the rural vote. Why is it at risk, and what is that plan?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, this is a report by the Independent Conservatives Together group, which I co-founded, and we've been looking at, what is it we need to do to win again, particularly from a campaigning point of view. And what we do most of the time is actually help train people who might want to become Conservative MPs. But this particular report is actually about the rural vote. Obviously, we lost out hugely at the last election. What we've done here is identified the 70 seats that we absolutely need to take back in the rural community if we're going to win again. And I have to say, the swing against us in those seats was bigger in those rural areas than it was everywhere else. So we identify those seats and we come up with some suggestions about what the party might do to try to win back.
Well, one big problem for rural voters is the march to net zero. Lots and lots of angry rural voters about the sort of solar panels, solar farms, wind farms, etc. There isn't very much difference between the Conservatives and Labour on net zero. And actually, Reform are picking up quite a lot of ground here. They are stringently anti-net zero. Don't you think Reform are going to hoover up those votes that the Conservatives lost at the last election?
First of all, I'd say there's a massive difference between us and the Conservatives and Labour when it comes to farming and rural communities. Remember, they've slapped this family tax, which...
But on net zero specifically.
Yeah, but I was going to say more broadly, though, the family tax is killing farmers. It's going to harm the future of agriculture in our country. So I don't agree there's no difference. On net zero, look, I think most people realise, most reasonable people realise, we need to sort out, like, a lot of the things we're doing in terms of production, food production, energy production, what have you. What we don't agree with is subscribing to the idea that we literally sacrifice the countryside over it. That was never our policy. I was Energy Secretary. It was never our policy. Labour have come in gun-ho on it. And as for others, look, people will have to come to their own conclusions. But the thing about the way that Reform, for example, approach this is they tell you whatever you want to hear. They'll tell you that they'll cut taxes. They'll tell you they'll spend more money. You can't have both, right? One or the other has to be true. So I think Conservatives, the traditional guardian of the countryside, need to do a number of specific things, and we've suggested 4 specific things in this report about what we should be doing now.
Well, Sir Grant, your report points to a failure to anticipate demographic change with voters. So how many Afghans have been secretly resettled into rural constituencies after your government suppressed information about that migration scheme and the data leak that came before it?
Yeah, just to remind your viewers, you're talking about that data leak, which was, I think, rightly kept secret, because otherwise the Taliban would have gone and murdered not only the Afghans on the list, but also, as we now know, because the super injunction's been lifted, Brits on that list.
A follow-up assessment found that there wasn't that risk to Afghans on the ground, and that reason for the suppression wasn't justified. And that was by the former head of Defence Intelligence.
I can certainly tell you as a fact that if you were sat in the seat that I was sat in and you had British personnel, special forces and others' lives on the line, you would have done exactly the same thing as me, because I would much rather save British lives as well as the Afghan ones than put those at risk. But to your point about settlement in rural communities, I shouldn't think that's been very whole scale. The particular scheme you're talking about is I think about 900 people thus far. But the wider point I think is important, which is this government is doing nothing to secure our borders, and we've seen that in particular with the small boats. They scrapped our Rwanda scheme, which was seeing numbers fall dramatically during the first half of 2024, and reversed that, and the numbers have been going, as we've seen, in completely the opposite direction, with record number of people crossing. So, I have nothing but contempt for the way that this Labour government has dealt with the issues of illegal migration, and I've nothing but contempt for the way they've dealt with farmers and farming communities and their families, which again is why this report is important today in suggesting the way forward for the Conservatives.
Well, very quickly, Sir Grant, on illegal migration there, you say you have nothing but contempt for Labour, but the Conservatives didn't get those numbers, illegal immigration numbers, down over their 13 years in power. What would you really do any differently if you're in power again?
Yeah, well, look, I think that when it comes to illegal migration, and particularly really we're talking about the small boat crossings here, we were actually on the way to, well, they were falling. So we're not just on the way, they were falling. This government's come in, scrapped the deterrent, which was the Rwanda scheme, which whatever you thought about it, at least we had a plan and it was starting to work because people were stopping coming, even though the courts and Labour were voting against it, by the way.
So, Grant, we have to leave it there. I'm sorry,
falling.
we've run out of time. That's all we've got from Britain's newsroom today. Thank you very much for coming on the programme this morning. Up next, we've got Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Dawn.
Yes, and we're looking forward to the live scenes we'll see with the Foreign Secretary and the US Vice President. What will they talk about? But also concerns in this country that if Israel cuts off sharing information with us, we could be more at risk to terror attacks.
Yeah, and we've got some light stuff as well. We're also talking bananas and UFOs in particular in connection with JD Vance. Where's that one going?
Well, there you go. All after the weather.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. This is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. For many of us, it is going to be a fine day today. Most of us will see some decent sunshine, and in that sunshine, it's going to feel pleasantly warm. But across the northern parts, it's a slightly different story. There is some wet weather here, quite persistent rain to start the day across parts of Shetland. Otherwise, across many parts of Scotland, there will be outbreaks of showery rain pushing through, and we have some blustery winds here as well. Across Northern Ireland and some parts of northern England, a bit cloudy at times, but across the rest of England and Wales, lots of sunshine, and in that sunshine, temperatures will rise. We're looking at highs of around 25 Celsius towards the southeast, so feeling pretty warm indeed. After a largely fine day, it's going to be a fine evening across much of England and Wales. Perhaps a bit more cloud pushing into some parts of the southwest, but it looks quite high cloud, so just turning the sunshine a bit milky. Otherwise, a fine picture for most. A bit more cloud still across parts of Northern Ireland and Northern England. 1 or 2 spots of rain can't be ruled out, but it's really across many parts of Scotland, especially the northern 2/3 of Scotland, where we have the greatest chance of some outbreaks of rain as we go through this evening. And still those blustery winds. Most of the showery outbreaks will actually clear away for a little period of time across northern areas, but then a front is going to push its way in from the northwest. So some potentially heavy rain pushing into parts of northwest Scotland and maybe northwest Northern Ireland, but elsewhere across the rest of the country it's looking dry with some clear skies, and so temperatures may be a touch lower than some recent nights, and with that there could be a few pockets of mist and fog first thing tomorrow morning. And then through tomorrow itself, that front towards the northwest does gradually edge its way a little bit further south and east, so just about pushing into parts of northern England, but it breaks up as it goes, so not bringing a huge amount of rain here. Plenty of showery bursts across Scotland following in behind, still quite blustery here, but a fine picture towards the southeast ahead of that front, and here temperatures look like they'll be a touch higher than today.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Let us take on some of your financial stresses and pay your mortgage or rent for the next 12 months. We want to give you a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, up to an unbelievable £20,000. We'll also boost that by a further £5,000, so you really could have some fun in the coming year. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is